With just weeks to go until the New Hampshire primary, the Trump campaign is going after the GOP rival who's making some noise there, Nikki Haley. In a new 30-second spot airing in New Hampshire, the ad tries to connect Haley's immigration positions with those of President Biden by arguing that both oppose Trump's border wall, and, quote, visitor ban from terrorist nations. Ugh. This marks the first time that Trump's campaign has gone after Haley in an effort to blunt her rising popularity in the Granite State, polls showing her gaining on Trump in New Hampshire. It also comes as other candidates have begun looking closely at interactions between Trump and Haley, as some in the GOP suggest she could be a possible vice presidential pick. Elsewhere, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis was confronted by one of his own supporters who demanded answers about why the presidential candidate hasn't gone after Donald Trump more directly. It happened during a campaign event in Iowa yesterday. The voter pressed DeSantis over his approach to Trump, accusing him of going soft on the former president.
Can I be honest with you?
Sure.
Okay, so I think a lot of us voted for Trump, and I have a couple of questions. For one, why haven't you gone directly after him? Polls are down. He's, up really.
What do you mean by going directly after?
I mean, you're in my viewpoint, you're going pretty soft on it.
But what do you think? So, because I've articulated all the differences time and time again on the campaign trail. I know. I think that there's just a narrative I think the narrative is this. I think what the media wants is they want Republican candidates to just kind of like smear him personally and kind of do that. That's just not how I roll.
Joining us now to talk about all this, politics reporter for Semaphore, Shelby Talcott. Shelby, great to see you this morning. So let's start with DeSantis. He has said before that it's not his style to referee others, but that may have backfired. I know there's been a lot of second guessing as to his approach to Trump. DeSantis himself bemoaning recently the fact that these criminal indictments have bolstered the former president. So what are the Republicans you speak to, those in and out of the DeSantis world, what's their take?
I think this interaction perfectly represents the problem that non-Trump alternatives are facing, which is that there is a sect of the Republican Party who really want to vote for someone who's very critical about Donald Trump. They do not like him. But there is a larger sect of the Republican Party, including people who want to vote for Ron DeSantis as their first choice, who still are defensive of the former president and don't want to vote for someone who goes directly after him. And so the non-Trump candidates have so far unsuccessfully tried to figure out that perfect red line where they can walk, where they're being critical of Donald Trump and showing voters why they're the ones that they should vote for, versus being overly critical and turning off the Republican base, which is very much still, indebted to Donald Trump.
So we see there that Trump is paying attention to Nikki Haley. Haley and DeSantis are sort of at a neck-and-neck battle for second in Iowa. And look, she's still behind in the polls in New Hampshire, but has really made up some ground in recent weeks, some momentum at the very least, so perhaps blunted by the fallout from her Civil War comments. Give us your latest sense as to how the Trump and Haley camps are both viewing the Granite State at the moment.
Well, if you talk to Donald Trump's camp, they are essentially arguing that the primary is already over. But even so, we've seen Donald Trump, he's ramping up his appearances in Iowa, and he's going to ramp up his appearances in New Hampshire. This is a much more organized team than we've seen in past presidential elections, and they're certainly not taking any chances. When I talk to Haley's team, they're underscoring that they are trying to essentially compete in Iowa and then do really well in New Hampshire. So they're keeping their expectations a little more vague compared to some of these other presidential candidates. But they fully believe that if they compete in Iowa, it'll bring them into New Hampshire. And if they do really well in New Hampshire, they don't have to come in first. They're looking for a strong second place finish. It'll propel them into South Carolina.